Yes, thank you. You mentioned Saudi Arabia's strategic objectives being stability and security and en route to prosperity. Saudi Arabia has an unemployment problem. It has a youth bulge problem. The oil and energy industries, famous for not employing so many human beings, but being capital intensive. What can you say about the situation in terms of the youth and the employment situation in Saudi Arabia bearing on those strategic objectives of security and stability? We have a whole session later this afternoon because many people are concerned about the youth aspect and the lack of jobs and the need for placing more than 100,000 people who graduate from secondary school in some forms of employment. And if that's just not successful, it's a social issue. It could become a political issue, could become a security and a stability issue.
Yes, I think the peace and stability starts at home. If you have a peaceful and stable society, you can work towards a peaceful and stable region. The future of Saudi Arabia lies with its people, and our youth are our most precious natural resource. And how we prepare them for a future, the opportunities we give them in terms of education and the opportunities we give them in terms of the marketplace are critically important to the well-being of Saudi Arabia in the decades ahead. It's ironic that 30 years ago people complained that Saudi Arabia didn't have enough people. Now they argue maybe we have too many people. So I see this as a blessing of riches. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia embarked on tremendous economic reforms by opening up its economy, by revitalizing its tax systems, by its investment laws, by joining the World Trade Organization. And what we have seen as a consequence of Saudi Arabia's accession to the World Trade Organization at the end of 2005 is we have seen the acceleration of growth rates, almost a doubling of the rate of growth. With it has come an acceleration and a tremendous increase in foreign investment in Saudi Arabia. We have seen an expansion of the Saudi economy to where today it is close to $500 billion, our GDP. The investments that are taking place in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will generate jobs, and they are generating jobs. The students that are being sent from Saudi Arabia abroad, and we have 100,000 students studying all over the world, of whom 30,000 are in the United States, will come back and be equipped to enter the marketplace and become productive and prosperous citizens. With regards to the graduates of secondary schools, Saudi Arabia has in place vocational training centers in order to teach people trades and then provide them with loans or grants so they can open small businesses and join the marketplace. So I believe that the issue of our youth, or the issue of expanding the Saudi economy and generating jobs for our citizens, is, while it is critically important to any government, I wouldn't make it as dramatic sounding as we hear sometimes when outsiders look at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Last question focuses on up to around 5 years ago, there was a consensus that America's and Saudi Arabia's and the other Arab world producers' strategic interest was energy security. You don't hear that so much anymore in the United States in comparison to a divorce that in the last two presidential State of the Union addresses in this administration, the last two in the previous administration, the president called for ending or curbing America's reliance on foreign oil. Most people see that as code words for ending reliance on Arab and Islamic oil and gas. How did we get from the energy security to this divorce issue? Not divorce from driving or transportation, but just not driving or having transportation on Arab or Islamic oil or gas. And the implications of this for the relationship, not just between the United States and Saudi Arabia, but United States and other energy producers in the region.
Well, I think this is a function of the political process in the United States. A lot of things take place and a lot of things happen and a lot of things are said during what many people in the U.S. call the silly season. So we can't take it too seriously. I think that the issue of oil is fungible. It doesn't matter where it's produced. It all goes into one theoretical or hypothetical pot. And demand for oil takes oil out of this one hypothetical pot and provides the supply. If you have a shortage of oil in one part of the world, it is going to have an impact on the price of gasoline in another part of the world. So whether the United States imports all of its oil from the Middle East or none of its oil from the Middle East, it will have no impact on the price of oil or gasoline in the United States should there be a crisis in the Middle East or elsewhere. I think the people realize that the world oil supply is a finite resource. You can't make it. Once you extract it, it's gone. The world cannot rely on oil indefinitely as its major source of energy. And Saudi Arabia, as the largest oil exporter and as the country that has the largest oil reserves, over a quarter of the world's oil reserves, has been at the forefront for the past 30 years of calling for the development of alternative sources of energy, because we know that there will come a point, it could be 20 years, it could be 50 years, it could be 60 years from now, where the world's energy needs or demands outstrip the ability of oil-producing countries to supply it. And so as the energy pie, so to speak, increases because of demand, the additional energy, we believe, ought to be supplied by alternative sources. And in order for those alternative sources to become economically viable, we have to start now so that in 20 years they make economic sense. We're not afraid of alternative sources replacing oil. Quite the contrary. We believe that if you develop alternatives gradually, you will have a smoother transition away from oil. In 1960, oil replaced coal as the primary source of energy in the world. And here we are 50 years later. Coal production has not decreased from where it was in 1960. But the energy pie, or the energy requirements of the world have gone up, and coal's share of that pie has shrunk, but coal production has not. So when people assume that oil producers are against alternative energy, I think that that's a fallacy. It will not affect us in the long run. It will not take away from our market share in the long run, our ability to produce. But it will make for a more stable transition in the future as the world moves away from the supply of energy. So back to your original question, a lot of things are said during political campaigns. A lot of things are said in order to make headlines. A lot of things are said in order to be sensational. And we have learned that we deal with the realities and we don't deal with the emotions.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We have many other questions. We'll have those in the afternoon session.
Thank you very much.